on this Saturday, the 26th of September, and this is our live stream number 52. Welcome to In Concert with myself. This is Christopher Daigan coming to you from my home in Pietermaritzburg, the next in our live stream series. Welcome to this evening's performance, and we look forward to welcoming you to another great performance, another interesting concert tonight. Tonight's selection of music is a mostly Mozart program. I've selected a number of Mozart pieces, some of which are quite rarely played, and they are three rondos. You might say this is a tale of three rondos. I will explain to you later on what a rondo is and what these pieces are about, and I'll be interspersing the three rondos with other music by Chopin, with more music by Mozart, music by Brahms and Scarlatti. So I hope you're going to enjoy this selection of music with us tonight. For those of you who have been watching us in recent weeks and recent months, you'll know that these streams, live streams, as I say, number 52, go out absolutely free on various Facebook platforms, on YouTube and our website. We really are depending entirely on you as the audience who view these and who are enjoying them, especially those who view them regularly and enjoy them and who are our supporters. We really value your support and your ability to contribute to the ongoing process that makes this all possible. If you'd like to know more about that, we are unfortunately unable to add any graphics or QR codes, etc. at this point because of our computer's weaknesses, but we are in the process of solving that. We're just waiting for the equipment to arrive. So there are no graphics, unfortunately, detailing the pieces or annoying you with the adverts. So this is the only announcement I will be making this evening, and possibly at the end, that if you are able to support us, please do so. And the best way is to visit our Music Revival website, musicrevival.co.za. You'll find all the links to be able to support us via PayPal if you're international, as well as Quicket. There's a Yoko platform that links to our Music Revival credit card facility, and then also the bank details for Music Revival. And if you're able to support us, it really does mean that we are receiving your support and that we can actually continue with these live stream series without charging for them. We would really hate to have this be in a situation where we actually have to charge for every stream that we do, and it means that a lot of people will not be able to see them at all. So it's a very wonderful project, and I'm very, very proud of what we've achieved and what we've been able to do. Just last night, in fact, I took part in an international event with, I think, 12 different musicians. I'm performing via various types of music and various platforms around the world to an Internations event. It was very interesting to see how all of their technical setups varied and changed, including ours. We had a few hairy moments here and there. And I was very proud of what we presented. It was lovely to represent South Africa. I played some music by Handel and Chopin, as well as two of my own compositions, Umbumbulu, a very popular piece, and it really provided, I was very pleased with a interesting and a unique contribution to this international celebration of music, which lasted several hours. Also, which has been very well received, and I've received so many positive comments about the session which we did last Wednesday, all about the piano. And I took the piano apart at one point, literally. For those of you who haven't seen it, it is available on YouTube and Facebook. I think it'll be there for a few days as well. And I explained all about the piano, about how it was created, how it works, something very few people talk about. But also, I managed to take the piano apart. Literally, I took the insides out of the piano and showed everyone what it looks like and how it works. And that is it was a great fun program, a lot of talking and a lot of chat. So the next performance, I didn't manage to get through everything I wanted to do. The next session on Wednesday is going to be all about the piano part 2, but it is going to be a few facts and figures and then a lot of music and not so much talking, really demonstrate the extremes and the possibilities and the great variety of style and the great possibilities of color and texture and sound and emotion that the piano can produce. So do join us next Wednesday. That's going to be a very enjoyable program. And if you're not on our mailing list already, please do join our mailing list. You'll also find all those details at our website. I have the new mail going out this week, giving you various details of the next number of streams. And there are going to be 1 or 2 changes, particularly at the stream on the 14th of October. because it seems rather daunting saying this, it's going to be rather unusual. I'm getting on an aeroplane in the middle of October to go and play live concerts, real live concerts with live people. And as it happens, as we've moved to lockdown level 1, I've received 3 invitations that were postponed or cancelled from the earlier part of the year. So in October, on the 12th, 13th and 18th of October, I'll be playing in Knysna, in Grahamstown and in Durban. And if you'd like to know more about those, please do visit our website from next week, and I hope to have more details and be able to share them with you. And then also coming up in the next month, in October, we are going to have our first live stream with a guest artist. This is going to be very, very exciting. I know that everyone has watched and enjoyed, I hope, 52 live streams of myself, just me playing the piano. And for the first time, we're going to have a guest artist. I'm going to keep that under wraps, but we have a brilliant musician, celebrated as one of South Africa's foremost, preeminent, most outstanding young musicians who will be joining me for a whole live stream performance of magnificent music. And I'll be able to tell you about that next week, and you can save the date and diarize that, because it is one that it is not going to be missed. This evening is a lovely spring evening. It has suddenly changed. The weather has cooled by the day. We were almost 40 degrees yesterday. It was incredibly warm, but certainly cooled off today. And now the soft spring rains are soaking in, just gently bringing spring to the fore, feeding the earth fresh fragrances, fresh energies, and it seems a perfect moment, in fact, to have the fresh music of Wolfgang Amadeus for you tonight. Mozart's music really has such a worldwide appeal across so many boundaries that everyone loves Mozart's music. And we have once again on the technical team, Kevin Liddell, who's assisting with the switching of the cameras, as well as Barry, who's helping with the camera angles. So we have 4 cameras for you this evening, as well as 2 of them are changing from point to point. So you'll be able to see some up-close camera angles of my hands. You'll be able to see me shift from one camera angle to another, and Kevin can keep track of which camera I'm talking to. And it all seems to be going rather swimmingly. We even have a camera over there so that you can see through the piano, and unfortunately I am using my iPad tonight, so you're going to see quite a lot of the back of the music stand from that angle, but you also get to see a small selection of the orchids, the beautiful orchids which are grown and which are really perfectly matched to Mozart's delightful and charming music, which I'll be playing for you tonight. We have 1 or 2 minutes to go before 6 p.m. Many people have responded. Their favorite part of the live streams that everyone talks about is always when our dogs, the 4 Dachshunds, miniature Dachshunds, appear in the live feed. And there's a rather subdued and somber atmosphere today, because one of our Dachshunds, Frida, who made an appearance just the other night, the spotted Merle Dachshund, underwent back surgery this afternoon. She unfortunately there was a bit of an incident the other night just before our stream started, and there was a bit of a rumpus over some guarded food that someone was not happy with, and there ended up being a little bit of a squabble, which is always very unsettling. But we managed to pursue continue at least with the live stream, and there was a little bit of tension. I felt a little bit tense on Wednesday night with all that happening. I did not know when I was going to leave the room or the studio here, in fact, what I was going to be confronted with, whether in fact we still had 4 dogs. But apparently in that rumpus and in that incident, Frida injured herself and is underwent surgery this afternoon. And we're hoping everything's going to be successful, and she is going to be back with us shortly. So it is 6 p.m. on the dot. Welcome to those of you who just joined us. This is Christopher Daigen coming to you from our home in Pietermaritzburg, our live stream number 52, Saturday the 26th of September, and on with the music of mostly Mozart. I'm going to play 3 rondos. 3 rondos are going to be the center point of this evening's music, and these 3 rondos were composed as individual pieces. They are not part of any greater multi-movement sonata at all. A rondo itself, just to explain to you, a rondo, a piece of music that goes round. At the beginning of a rondo, any typical rondo, whether it's Mozart, Haydn, or Beethoven composing, you will have a theme. And for instance, a good example is the Turkish rondo, or the rondo alla turca. You have an opening theme. You have, in following that, a second theme. And back to the opening theme. And then onto another contrasting theme. I think I've just got the order mixed up. But the point is, you have an opening theme, something else. The opening theme, something different. The opening theme and something else. It's like you're going around. I always saying like around at a traffic circle. That is the rondo theme, and you keep going off in a different direction and coming back to the central point. So Mozart was particularly fond. It was a particularly suitable structure and form for him to work with his music. And I'm going to play 3 of those rondos for you this evening, one of which has got a very particularly interesting provenance to it, if that's the right word. And I will couple each of them with a piece. But to start off, I'd like to play the first movement from the sonata in G, K283. I've often played the slow movement, the second movement from the sonata, but I thought it'd be lovely to start the program with the very beautiful, gentle and positive mood of the sonata, Allegro from the sonata in G major. start to this evening's program. The first movement from the sonata, an early sonata by Ludwig Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, the sonata in G major K283. Now I'm going to move on to the first of these three rondos which I'll be playing for you tonight, and this is the rondo in A minor K511. It's written in the last years of Mozart's life. And what's interesting about it, it's actually quite a grand and serious work. I wouldn't call it sad or melancholic, but it's certainly subdued in certain ways. Mozart himself apparently improvised. It thought that this performance or this piece of music was written down after an improvisation in Prague. He had been very well received there for the great success of his opera. And he held a concert, was involved in a concert, and apparently improvised a piece of music which could very well have been this or very close to this. And it is thought this is possible because there are no notebooks or sketches that show how he developed this music or how he created it or where he worked on ideas. It suddenly appeared in its complete form, which is even for Mozart sometimes rather unusual. Usually there are sketchbooks or notepads about how he would have created the music and ideas that it formed. It's not often played, and I think it's a great shame because I think it's a wonderful piece of music. I'm always very interested in delving into the regions of a composer's repertoire that are not often played. And I discovered this work many, many years ago, and I was really, really surprised when I found it because I thought this is a really fantastic work and it's not often performed. It's lyrical. There's a certain wistfulness, you might say, to the music. But I really think it represents something about Mozart in a very melancholic and a very expressive, creative way. This is the rondo in A minor. It's quite a substantial piece of music in A minor, K511. And straight after that, I'm going to match it. I'm going to find a work which I think has a certain link, not only in terms of the fact it's in the same key of A minor, but also because there's something of the same smooth, sliding melody in this particular opening moment that Mozart writes. It's like the notes, they slide. There's a snakiness or almost about it. The chromatic inflections that he uses throughout this piece are very unique and I think give that very wistful nature to the music. And so the Chopin Waltz in A minor, opus 34, I think matches something of that same quality. two rather melancholically touched. I wouldn't say they are melancholic, but certainly there's a moment of melancholy in them. Music there by Frédéric Chopin, his Waltz in A minor, and before that the rondo, the first of three rondos in this evening's program by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, that being the rondo in A minor K511. The rain is beautifully falling outside. I can see it, hear it outside running down the gutters. Always seems like the perfect companion to those very calm and gentle moods of Chopin. I would like to continue with another of the rondos by Mozart, and this particular piece has a really, really interesting story to it. So I'm going to tell you quite a lot about it. So if you need to disappear, if you don't want to hear what I have to say, you're welcome to go away for a few minutes, and you can come back and the music will be starting shortly, only if you really want to. So this Rondo K386, apparently Mozart, well, it was thought that Mozart wrote it for one of his early piano concertos, the piano concerto number 12, I think it is, K414. Mozart wrote 27 piano concertos, and it's unfortunate that most of the concerts, organizations, orchestras, certainly in this country, always play the same two or three. I mean, they're such magnificent music. But these early pieces are not as grand or impressive as the later ones. So the concerto number 12, A major, sounds... It was thought that Mozart wrote the rondo, which is the third movement. That was the first movement. The third movement, first of all, to be part of this composition, and then discarded it. Although later thought being that, in fact, it was never intended to be part of that concerto, because Mozart identified it and wrote on the original, on the front page of the manuscript, the date of that particular piece, and also the title of it, which he wouldn't have done if it was part of another composition. Now, after Mozart's death, many of Mozart's compositions were not actually published during his life. And his wife, his widow, sold many of the manuscripts. She was desperate for money and sold manuscripts. And these manuscripts went off to different buyers, dealers, for publication or to be held in private property, you might say. And the manuscript for this rondo, which eventually was identified and published, identified in the catalogue as K386, was largely lost. Well, it wasn't entirely lost, put it that way. It was in existence for some time, but then apparently a music collector or composer in England decided that he bought it somewhere. He got hold of it and decided that it would be suitable to be cut up into pages and into pieces and given to his friends and family as gifts, which is rather unfortunate, because this is the only version, this is the only original copy of this composition of Mozart. Before that, however, a musician by the name of Cipriani Potter, who I've talked about before, and I'll tell you why, a musician from London. He had studied with one of Mozart's students, Thomas Atwood, and also had been to Vienna and had met Beethoven there and was a big champion of Mozart's music when he went back to England. He was the first person to perform Beethoven's third and fourth piano concertos in England, and he also championed Mozart's piano concertos because only 3 or 4 of them had been performed in England up to that time. So he really was a great fan of Mozart's music, and he also was the first principal. I always thought he was the founder, but he was the first principal of the Royal College of Music, a great institution which is still functioning today in London. Mr. Potter was the first principal and a well-known pianist and composer. But before this manuscript disappeared, he published a number of Mozart's compositions in England, including a piano solo version of this rondo, which means that instead of just playing the piano part with the orchestra, he combined the two. He wrote out his own version and published it, where the pianists, which is what I'm going to play now, had to play the orchestral parts as well as the piano part. Then when the manuscript was finally, parts of it were pieced together, it was found that the last 3 pages were completely gone. No one knew where they were. And so according to what Mr. Potter had written, it was thought that he had had access to the original version of Mozart's manuscript. And so what he had written in a solo piano version was then the last ending, or how Mozart intended the piece to end, which is what I'd grown up with when I'd heard the piece, because it was on a very special record of mine. I was bought a record which had this concerto on it. I was playing another Mozart concerto. I was 8 years old. And this happened to be on the recording of Vladimir Ashkenazy, and I've managed to track it down and find it on iTunes. It's not wonderful that you can find all these amazing recordings from your past on places like iTunes. Anyway, so that's how I've always grown up with this piece and always loved it. And so what was thought to be the original ending was according to what Mr. Potter had written in his solo piano version. However, and this is what I find fascinating about how musicology and the manuscripts appear and disappear. In 1980, in the British Museum, they found the last 3 pages of Mozart's original manuscript. It simply becomes separated from the rest of it. And there it was, the last 3 pages. And suddenly, after 1980, recordings now after that generally use the version which Mozart actually wrote, which is different to what many recordings prior to that had included, because that was what Mr. Potter had thought, obviously. He obviously probably hadn't seen the final version of the manuscript either. So I'm going to play this rondo for you now. It's a really beautiful piece. It has a rather drawn and very subdued feeling to it. It's lyrical. It's got a warm sunniness. It's not overly exuberant. It's got a very relaxed sunniness to it. And I have learned this piece now. I have played it with the orchestra, but now I've had to learn how to incorporate all the orchestra parts into the piano bits, which is quite tricky. And I'm playing from the original manuscript published in 1820 or something. That's a very obscure-looking manuscript. It's quite hard to read. So if a couple of things go wrong, bear with me. But I don't know how many recordings of this arrangement, this version of Mr. Potter, Cipriani Potter's rondo exists. I only managed to find one recording on YouTube, but I'd like to play it for you this evening. It's a very beautiful and I think a really wonderful piece of music, the rondo in A major, K386. And straight after that, I've decided to couple that with an intermezzo in A major by Johannes Brahms, which I think also has this very autumnal, drawn and very smooth feel to it. So I hope you enjoy these 2 pieces of music. very drawn, long lines there of Brahms's Intermezzo, opus 118, and before that the Rondo, K386 by Mozart, a piece of music intended for orchestra and piano solo. I played there a very, very rarely played version, an arrangement from the original manuscript, as he thought it was, by the English pianist and composer and person who met Beethoven, Cipriani Potter. As I said, he was the first principal of the Royal Academy of Music in London, and he was also the person that story which I've recounted several times, when he was the one who asked Beethoven, Herr Beethoven, who do you think the greatest composer is? And Beethoven said, well, apart from myself, of course, alive, but really it had to be me. And then of the dead composers, Beethoven apparently said that he used to favor the music of J.S. Bach, but that he now favored the music of George Frederick Handel. And I think partly the fact that Bach had been a keyboard study of Beethoven's, Bach's 48 preludes of fugues was for every pianist and every scholar the beginning of music and how it worked. And I'm sure that those very rigorous exercises had that effect on Beethoven in terms of perhaps not being Bach being his favorite composer, but also the fact that I think Bach's music had largely fallen into obscurity at that time. It was only later that people rediscovered Bach, and then Handel was supposed to be the composer that Beethoven chose. So I'm going to move on to another rondo, this time the rondo in D major. I'm going to just check, I can't remember all the numbers here. 485, K485 by Mozart in D major. Wonderful rondo. This is a very up-tempo, quite sparkling piece of music. Again, a single composition. Mozart intended this to be on its own. It's not part of a greater composition. And what is unique about this is the very optimistic mood, the very optimistic sounds and melodies that Mozart writes in this opening theme. The principal theme that goes around, a rondo, it goes around, comes back. But what I find so intriguing about this piece is that it hardly ever goes away. That little theme keeps coming back in so many different keys, on the top and the bottom and the left hand. Just when you think you've got away from it, it appears again. It's a rather self-obsessed, you might say, piece of music. But nevertheless, very charming, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this. And with that, I am going to play and end off this evening's program with a composition by Domenico Scarlatti, which is also in D major and has similar interesting modulations. In other words, it goes into some quite adventurous keys quite unexpectedly. So this is the Rondo K485 by Mozart and the Scarlatti Sonata, Domenico Scarlatti Sonata in D major K491. Lots of figures for me to remember tonight, goodness. That was the Scarlatti Sonata in D major, K491, one of 500 or so Scarlatti sonatas that he wrote. And that brings us to an end of this evening's program. Before that, you heard the Rondo in D major by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, K485. A tale of three rondos, you might say. Three rondos that I played this evening, 485, 386, and 511. And then before that, the sonata in G major, the first movement, as well as a Chopin waltz, the Brahms intermezzo, and something else I played. I can't remember what it was. No, I think that was everything. I'm going a bit blank once again. We've had so many live streams. This is live stream number 52. And that brings us to the end of this evening's session of In Concert with myself, Christopher Dyke. Now, if you have been enjoying this and you are able to support us, please continue to donate financially. We appreciate every donation that does come through. It really helps me to continue working. It helps us continue with the technical costs, the platform costs of producing these live streams, as well as with the equipment costs. And as you can see, I think we're doing a pretty splendid job. Thank you to Kevin on the technical side and Barry on the cameras. Hope you've enjoyed this evening's presentation of beautiful sounds and beautiful images. Next week, Wednesday, we'll have part 2 of All About the Piano. As I said, it'll be the second installment. Some interesting facts, brief collection of facts and figures about the piano, but the whole session is going to be taken up by a program of pieces that I'm going to choose very specifically to show off the extreme possibilities of what the piano can do, from high to low, loud to soft, melancholic to exuberant. Really try and bring everything about the piano and its repertoire together in one program all on its own. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good evening. Please look after yourself, stay well, and we look forward to seeing you at one of our live streams very soon. Thank you for joining us tonight.